On average, 6 people die climbing the world's tallest peak each year, and the year 2015 was the mountain's deadliest in recent history, when an avalanche killed 19 people attempting to reach the peak of the Earth. Physical training and tens of thousands of dollars are just a few of the things adventure seekers need to conquer Mount Everest. Hundreds of people from around the world travel to the Himalayas every year, dreaming of reaching the Everest summit. They spend weeks getting their gear, adjusting to the altitude, and simply waiting for good weather. Climbers can be so eager to reach the peak and stake their claim on an Everest summit that they develop what's called summit fever, risking their lives just to make it happen. And even with oxygen masks on, this zone is not a great place to hang out for too long. But here's all you need to know about climbing the highest mountain in the world: Mount Everest. In the years since human beings first reached the summit of Mount Everest in 1953, climbing the world's highest mountain has changed dramatically. Today, hundreds of mountaineers manage the feat each year thanks to improvements in knowledge, technology, and the significant infrastructure provided by commercially guided expeditions that provide a veritable highway up the mountain for those willing to accept both the risks and a hefty price tag. Mount Everest, located between Nepal and Tibet, an autonomous region of China. At 8,849 meters, it is considered the tallest point on Earth. Although reaching the top of the world is a difficult and potentially deadly task due to the extreme altitude, avalanches, ice falls, and other hazards. Earth scientists estimate that Everest is 50 to 60 million years old, a youngster by geological standards. Most mountaineers attempt to ascend the world's tallest peak in May, as there's a brief window of time, usually after May 15th of each year, when temperatures are warmer and the high-altitude winds known as the jet stream have moved away from the mountains. Climbers usually try to avoid visiting the Everest region if there's frequent rainfall, as it can make the trail conditions slippery and extremely dangerous. Mount Everest sits right at the border between Nepal and Tibet, an autonomous region in China. Most trekking companies operate in Nepal, as climbing in Tibet has become more expensive and more controlled in recent years. Those climbing on the south route fly into Nepal's capital of Kathmandu, where travelers begin hiking to the Everest base camp. It takes about 2 months to climb Mount Everest. A Seattle-based expedition company once flew a group of 12 climbers to the Himalayas in late March and doesn't expect them to come home until the end of May. This is to illustrate how long the process, preparations, and hiking of the world's tallest peak take. The climbers, along with staff members and Sherpa guides, would spend nearly 2 weeks hiking to the Everest base camp, which sits at an altitude of around 17,000 feet. They would then spend about 2 weeks adjusting to the altitude and waiting for good weather conditions before continuing for another 4 days, reaching other camps, and finally ascending to the summit. Most climbers spend months or even years before even thinking about making it to the Himalayas. This guide only takes climbers to Everest, who have successfully reached 1 or 2 other challenging peaks. The cost includes $11,000 for the climbing permit from the government of Nepal or Tibet, bottled oxygen, and high-altitude gear that includes tents, sleeping bags, and boots. It also covers medical care, food, and support from Sherpa guides, and bottled oxygen for them, which is mandatory for every foreign climber. There is no cap on how many people can make the climb, but a total of 381 permits were issued in 2019, just 9 more than Nepal issued in 2017. These numbers are from the Director General of Nepal's Tourism Department. A previous mountaineer who has climbed Everest 4 times explained that many more people are trying to climb from the Nepalese side. He believes that about 800 people could be making the journey up, since each foreigner requires a Sherpa guide. While most expedition companies review their clients' experience before helping them get a permit, Nepal does not currently require proof of climbing experience for those climbing Everest, even though there are rumors that authorities are considering changing that practice. This means in the nearest future, you might need previous experience to climb to the highest peak in the world. And this is to limit the casualty rate of climbers attempting the peak of the mountain, known as the summit. Thousands of people flock to Mount Everest each year, hoping to summit the world's most famous mountain. Sadly, not all of them make it back. When you're climbing a mountain that's 8,849 meters tall, accidents happen. Sometimes bad weather rolls in, sometimes climbers get injured, and a lot of the time, oxygen is limited. On Everest, it's always a matter of life or death. According to the Himalayan database, at least 322 people have perished on Mount Everest since records began in 1922, averaging out to about 4.4 deaths per year, and that number slowly ticks up each year. The first summit of the mountain was in 1953, so that means 4 to 5 people have died there each year since then. The death rate from climbing Mount Everest in the last 30 years sits at about 1%. So, all in all, your chances of dying while climbing the mountain are slim. However, that's only the case if you are properly prepared and climbing with a professional guide. Not to mention, when things go wrong, they go very wrong. It would be a mistake to conclude that summiting Everest is a walk in the park because of the low death rate. It's not uncommon to walk over frozen bodies while summiting Mount Everest, but why aren't they being removed? Recovering bodies is risky and expensive. The task is far too demanding, and good weather conditions only last for a short while. So, it is very logical to leave the bodies there to rest. If you've made it this far, kindly consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. That's all for now. See you around next time.